the night Bobby Mackey's music world first comes alive. The neon lights flicker like they're unsure whether they should stay on. Music spills out into the Kentucky air, loud, careless, inviting. People laugh as they step inside, unaware that the ground beneath their feet once drank blood instead of beer. Long before it was a nightclub, this place was a slaughterhouse. A site where screams were ordinary and mercy was rare. Some say the walls never forgot. They absorbed the fear, the agony, and the final breaths, storing them like a memory that refuses to die. As the band plays and boots stomp against the floor, shadows begin to move where no one stands. Not the kind caused by lights or dancers, but darker, thicker shapes that slide along the corners of the room. People feel it first in their stomachs, a sudden chill, a sense of being watched. Jinn, spirits that exist beyond human sight, are whispered about by those who work late shifts. They say these beings were drawn here by pain, feeding on the residue of suffering left behind. Ghosts, too, are said to wander freely, reliving moments they cannot escape, trapped in a cruel continuity, where the past never stays buried. Down in the basement, the air feels heavier, as if breathing itself requires permission. There is a spot locals call a portal, a place where the line between worlds thins. Visitors report hearing voices calling their names, soft at first, then urgent. Some swear they've seen faces press through the darkness, eyes full of hunger and rage. This is where stories of possession begin. Strong men shaking, screaming words they don't remember learning, their voices layered with something ancient and cruel. Witnesses say it's not just a ghost, but something darker, a demonic presence that doesn't want to scare you away, but pull you in. The dance floor doesn't offer safety either. Women report feeling invisible hands brush their hair or grip their waists. Musicians talk about sudden waves of despair hitting them mid-song. Fingers freezing on strings, as if something is standing just inches away. Listening. The jinn and ghosts seem to move with intention, choosing moments of joy to remind the living that this place belongs to the dead. Suspense hangs in the air, thick enough to taste, as if the building itself is waiting for a mistake, a moment of weakness. By closing time, when the last note fades and the lights dim, the silence becomes unbearable. Footsteps echo where no one walks. Laughter returns briefly, warped and distant, like a recording played backward. Those who lock up swear the building resists, being left alone. Doors slamming on their own, mirrors fogging with unseen breath. Bobby Mackey's music world doesn't sleep when the people leave. It watches. It remembers. And every night, it waits for the next soul to cross its threshold, ready to continue a story that never truly ends. Long before the music, before the laughter, before the neon glow promised escape and entertainment, this land knew only fear. The ground beneath Bobby Mackey's music world was once a slaughterhouse, a place designed for endings. Animals were led inside under false calm, their instincts screaming while the walls closed in around them. Blood soaked into the soil day after day, year after year, until the earth itself learned the rhythm of suffering. People say places remember, and if that is true, then this ground remembers everything. Every cry, every struggle, every final moment when life slipped away unnoticed. Suspense was not created here later, it was born here. When the slaughterhouse shut down and time moved forward, something stayed behind. Pain does not vanish just because buildings change their names. It lingers waiting. the continuity of horror remained unbroken, as if the past simply put on a new mask. When the nightclub was built, laughter tried to overwrite the screams. Music tried to drown out the echoes, but the foundation rejected peace. Workers reported feeling uneasy before the doors ever opened. A pressure in the chest, a sense of being watched from below. Some whispered about Jinn, spirits drawn to places soaked in death, beings that thrive where fear once ruled. In folklore, Jinn are not born evil, but they are curious, attracted to strong emotions, especially pain and despair. This place offered them both in abundance. As the walls went up and the stage was set, ghosts began to stir. Not the gentle kind people imagine, but restless presences trapped in a loop, reliving the same moments over and over. These spirits carried the memory of slaughter, even if they were never human themselves. The land had become a magnet, pulling in energy from beyond, binding it to the structure above. Night after night, as construction crews worked late, tools went missing. Shadows moved without explanation, and voices whispered from empty rooms. No one could explain it, but everyone felt it, the sense that something old was waking up. When Bobby Mackey's music world finally opened, the transition felt wrong, almost mocking. A place of death reborn as a place of celebration. The ghosts did not leave, they adapted. The Jinn did not flee, they observed. Music vibrated through the floors, stirring what lay dormant beneath. Bass lines shook the memories loose, awakening spirits that had been silent for decades. People danced, unaware that the ground beneath them had once trembled for very different reasons. Suspense wrapped itself around the room, invisible but constant, tightening as the night grew darker. Some say the spirits resented the joy. Others believe they were simply confused. Trapped in continuity where suffering never ended and happiness felt like an insult. That confusion turned into anger, and anger into manifestation. Cold spots formed without warning. Shadows stretched too long, bending against the rules of light. Ghosts were seen watching from corners, silent witnesses to a world that no longer belonged to them. The Jinn, unseen but powerful, fed on the emotional chaos, fear mixing with excitement, disbelief colliding with curiosity. The slaughterhouse was gone, but its purpose lived on in another form. Where once bodies were broken, now minds were tested. People felt drawn to the place without knowing why, pulled by something deeper than music or curiosity. The land itself seemed to call out, continuing its story through new victims, new emotions, new nights. Every cheer, every song, every stomp of a boot against the floor layered over the past without erasing it. The ghosts listened. The Jinn waited. And the building stood as proof that some histories do not end. They evolve, patiently, relentlessly, forever unfinished. As night settles over Bobby Mackey's music world, the shadows arrive before the ghosts do. They slip in quietly, stretching along the walls and corners, where the light can't quite reach. At first, they look ordinary, shaped by flickering bulbs and moving bodies, but then they begin to behave differently. They pause when everything else moves. They slide when nothing should be casting them. People feel their presence before they see them, a tightening in the chest, a sudden awareness that the darkness is crowded. Suspense grows not from noise, but from silence, the kind that feels deliberate, watchful. Employees who close late speak of these shadows, as if they have personalities. Some cling to the floor, thick and heavy, refusing to move even when lights are switched on. Others rise unnaturally tall, bending up the walls as if trying to stand. Ghosts are believed to travel within these shadows, using them like doorways, appearing only when fear reaches a certain level. Witnesses describe pale figures at the edges of their vision, faces half-formed, eyes hollow yet focused. These spirits don't wander aimlessly, they observe. They wait. Their existence feels bound to a continuity that never resets, replaying fragments of pain again and again. Jinn are said to move differently. Unlike ghosts, they don't always reveal themselves visually. Their presence is felt as pressure, as a sudden shift in emotion. A room filled with laughter can turn heavy in seconds, joy collapsing into dread for no clear reason. Some believe the Jinn feed on this emotional contrast, thriving where excitement and fear collide. At Bobby Mackey's, those conditions exist every night. Music pulses, adrenaline rises, and beneath it all, an undercurrent of unease hums like a second rhythm. The Jinn slip through that rhythm, unseen, influencing thoughts, amplifying anxieties, and whispering into moments of weakness. People report hearing their names spoken softly behind them, only to turn and find empty space. Others feel unseen fingers trace along their arms or brush their necks, leaving cold trails that linger long after the sensation fades. These experiences blur the line between imagination and reality, which is exactly where spirits are strongest. The ghosts seem to thrive in that uncertainty, appearing just long enough to be doubted, their faces fading before logic can take hold. Suspense deepens because nothing stays long enough to be proven, yet nothing feels accidental. The shadows grow bolder as the night wears on. They gather near mirrors, where reflections seem delayed or distorted. Some claim they've seen figures standing behind them in the glass, only to turn and find no one there. In those moments, the continuity of the haunting becomes clear. This is not a single event, not a passing trick of the mind. It is a pattern, repeating itself night after night, year after year. New visitors experience the same fear old employees describe, as if the building teaches terror, passing it down like an inheritance. Ghosts are often heard before they are seen. Footsteps echo in empty hallways, slow and deliberate, stopping just out of sight. Laughter drifts through closed rooms, warped and distant, carrying a tone that doesn't belong to the living. Some swear they've heard crying beneath the music, buried so deep it feels more like a memory than a sound. The Jinn are believed to guide these manifestations, stirring the air, bending perception, encouraging the spirits to reveal themselves just enough to disturb, but never enough to satisfy curiosity. Over time, fear becomes familiar, and familiarity becomes dangerous. People begin to accept the shadows as part of the atmosphere, the whispers as tricks of acoustics. That's when the presence feels strongest. The ghosts linger closer. The Jinn push deeper. Suspense tightens. Because the threat no longer announces itself, it blends in. At Bobby Mackey's music world, the unseen doesn't rush. It waits, patient and persistent, moving through shadows, feeding on fear, continuing a haunting that never truly pauses, only breathes, watching as the living slowly realize they were never alone. The basement of Bobby Mackey's music world is not a place people wander into by accident. The stairs leading down feel narrower than they should, the air colder with every step, as if the building itself is warning you to turn back. Sound changes there. Music from upstairs arrives distorted, stretched thin, like it's passing through something alive. Many believe this basement is more than just a room beneath the club. They call it a portal, a thinning of the veil where worlds overlap, where Jinn, ghosts, and darker entities find it easier to cross through. Suspense settles immediately, heavy and undeniable, pressing against the skin. Those who step onto the basement floor often describe a sudden dizziness, a feeling of being pulled rather than standing. Some say the ground vibrates faintly, not with sound, but with intention. This is where the continuity of the haunting becomes impossible to ignore. The same sensations, the same fear, reported by different people across decades, as if the place follows a script it refuses to change. Ghosts are said to linger here in greater numbers, drawn to the portal like moths to flame. They appear as shadows clinging to the walls, or as cold pockets of air that seem to breathe against you. Jinn are believed to be strongest in this space. Unlike ghosts bound to memory, Jinn are ancient, intelligent, and curious. They are said to sense vulnerability, slipping into moments when fear loosens the mind's defenses. In the basement, emotions spike without warning: panic, sorrow, anger, all flooding in at once. People report intrusive thoughts that feel foreign, whispers that don't sound like imagination, but don't sound external either. This is where stories of possession begin, not suddenly, but gradually, like a slow erosion of self. Witnesses describe individuals who entered the basement calm and confident, only to emerge shaken, their eyes unfocused, their voices unfamiliar. Some spoke languages they didn't know. Others screamed names they'd never heard before. The continuity of these accounts, separated by years yet eerily similar, deepens the dread. It suggests not a single entity, but a process, a ritual repeated unknowingly by anyone who crosses into that space. The portal does not force entry, it invites it. Ghosts are said to gather when possessions occur, drawn to the surge of energy. Some witnesses claim to have seen figures standing silently around possessed individuals, watching as if observing a ceremony. These spirits do not intervene. They linger, bound to the basement by unfinished stories, by deaths soaked into the land long before the club existed. Their presence adds layers to the fear, a sense that what is happening has happened before and will happen again. The Jinn, however, are believed to be orchestrators. They influence emotion, distort perception, and amplify weakness. In folklore, Jinn can coexist unseen, slipping in and out of human awareness. In the basement, that coexistence feels invasive. People report feeling crowded inside their own minds, as if their thoughts are no longer private. Suspense tightens because possession here is not dramatic at first, it's subtle. A change in posture, a shift in tone, a laugh that doesn't belong. Even after leaving the basement, some claim the influence follows them. Nightmares begin. Sudden mood swings. An unshakable sense of being watched. This suggests the portal does not close once crossed. It leaves a mark, a thread connecting the individual back to the place. Ghosts may remain behind, but the Jinn are said to travel, testing boundaries, feeding on fear wherever it surfaces. The basement does not demand belief, it waits. Patient, silent. Every step taken there feels like part of an ongoing cycle, a continuity of fear passed from one visitor to the next. The portal does not roar or glow. It breathes. And those who stand too long within its reach often realize too late that something else has begun to breathe with them, quietly, persistently, refusing to let go. On the dance floor, where lights spin and music pounds, hard enough to drown out thought. People believe they are safest. Noise feels like protection. Movement feels like control. But at Bobby Mackey's music world, this is where the haunting becomes intimate. This is where the unseen no longer stays at a distance. As bodies press together and the air grows warm, another presence slips in, cold, deliberate, and unmistakably aware. Suspense rises not in silence, but in the middle of chaos, when fear has nowhere obvious to come from. Women have spoken of feeling fingers combed gently through their hair while they danced, slow and possessive, as if someone stood close behind them. When they turned, there was no one there, no space for anyone to have moved away unnoticed. Others felt hands grip their waist, firm enough to leave no doubt, yet gone the moment they reacted. The shock lingers longer than the touch itself. It's not the fear of being touched that unsettles them most. It's the certainty that the touch had intention. Ghosts are believed to mimic human closeness, repeating gestures they remember, while jinn are said to experiment, curious about physical sensation, crossing boundaries simply because they can. Musicians feel it too. Guitar strings suddenly feel heavier beneath their fingers. Drummers lose rhythm as a wave of exhaustion crashes into them without warning. Some report sudden despair, a grief so deep it feels borrowed, overwhelming them mid-song. This emotional intrusion is often linked to jinn, spirits known to influence mood and thought rather than appearing outright. They move through emotion the way ghosts move through space, blending into moments of vulnerability. The continuity of these experiences is what makes them terrifying. Different performers, different years, the same sensations, repeating like a curse woven into the music itself. The crowd becomes part of the ritual without realizing it. Excitement, alcohol, anticipation, these emotions create openings. People describe sudden nausea, dizziness, or the feeling that the room is tilting, even though nothing has changed. Ghosts are said to gather close in these moments, drawn by the spike in energy. Some witnesses claim to see pale faces hovering just beyond the stage lights, watching not the performance, but the people. Watching reactions. Watching fear take root. Suspense tightens when physical sensations turn inward. Some individuals feel pressure on their chest, as if something unseen is leaning into them. Others feel breath against their ear, accompanied by whispers too faint to understand, but too real to dismiss. These whispers don't feel random. They feel personal. Jinn are often blamed for this, entities capable of slipping into thought, nudging emotions, encouraging paranoia and doubt. The danger lies not in one moment, but in continuity. The way these encounters stack, layer upon layer, night after night. Security staff have reported breaking up fights that seemed to come from nowhere. People turning on each other without clear reason. Later, those involved often say they felt provoked by something unseen, an overwhelming anger that wasn't theirs. This manipulation of emotion fits the pattern many associate with jinn influence, while the ghosts linger nearby, silent witnesses to yet another replay of chaos. The building doesn't erupt into violence, it nudges it gently, patiently. As the night wears on, the touches become bolder. Cold hands brushing arms. Sudden sharp pains with no physical cause. Some claim to feel nails digging briefly into skin, leaving no marks but unforgettable fear. These moments pass quickly, but their impact remains. People leave shaken, unable to explain what happened, replaying the sensation again and again in their minds. That replay is part of the haunting. The ghosts thrive on memory. The Jinn thrive on emotion. Together, they ensure the experience does not end when the music stops. Even those who laugh it off feel it later, alone. When the noise is gone, a lingering chill. A sense of being followed. The dance floor gives the illusion of control, but it is here that the unseen comes closest, where fear blends seamlessly into celebration. At Bobby Mackey's, the spirits don't hide in corners. They move among the living, touching, influencing, reminding everyone that joy does not erase history, it awakens it. When the doors finally close and the last footsteps fade into the Kentucky night, Bobby Mackey's music world does not fall silent. That is when it feels most awake. The lights dim, but the darkness does not settle, it moves. Employees who stay behind describe the building as restless, as if it resents being left alone. Suspense thickens in the quiet, because the silence here is never empty. It listens. It waits. Those tasked with locking up often hear sounds that don't belong to an empty place. Chairs scrape softly across the floor, though no one is there to move them. A door clicks shut in the distance, slow and deliberate, followed by the unmistakable echo of footsteps pacing the halls. Ghosts are believed to roam freely at this hour, no longer forced to hide behind noise or distraction. They drift through rooms as if retracing old paths, bound to a continuity that repeats night after night. The same routes, the same pauses, the same moments of hesitation, as though they remember something terrible just beyond reach. Mirrors become especially unsettling after hours. Reflections seem delayed. Movements out of sync. Some workers claim they've seen figures standing behind them in the glass, tall, motionless shapes that vanish the moment they turn around. Others report fog appearing on mirrors, despite the room being cold, as if unseen breath presses close to the surface. These manifestations are often linked to ghosts, spirits anchored to memory, replaying fragments of themselves again and again. The building becomes their stage, performing for an audience that never volunteered to watch. Jinn are said to move differently once the club is empty. Without human distraction, their influence becomes heavier, more direct. The air itself feels charged, pressing against the skin, making it difficult to breathe comfortably. Workers describe sudden waves of dread, with no apparent cause. A sense that something is standing just out of sight, close enough to reach out. In folklore, Jinn are known to exist alongside humans unseen, revealing themselves only when they choose. In Bobby Mackey's, night seems to be their chosen time. Whispers are common during these hours, not loud enough to understand, but clear enough to know they are not imagined. Names are spoken softly, coaxingly, as if testing for a response. Those who answer, even jokingly, often regret it. The temperature drops sharply. Lights flicker. The feeling of being watched intensifies. Suspense grows, because the activity feels reactive, as though the building is aware of attention and responds to it. This awareness feeds the belief that the haunting is not random, but intelligent. Doors sometimes refuse to open, handles rattling violently as if held from the other side. Other times, doors slam shut with enough force to echo through the building, leaving workers frozen in place, unsure whether to run or remain still. Ghosts are said to gather in these moments, their presence felt as cold currents rushing past, brushing against skin like passing bodies. The Jinn, meanwhile, are believed to manipulate fear itself, amplifying panic, distorting time, making minutes feel like hours. What makes these nights truly terrifying is the continuity. The same stories told by different people who never met. The same sounds. The same sensations. Decades apart, yet unchanged. It suggests the haunting does not weaken with time, it strengthens. Each night adds another layer, another memory, another witness. The building remembers who enters after dark, and some say it remembers who leaves too slowly. Even after exiting, many claim the feeling follows them. The sense of being watched doesn't fade once they reach their cars. Shadows seem to linger at the edge of headlights. Radios crackle with static at the exact moment fear peaks. Dreams become vivid, crowded with unfamiliar faces, and places that feel disturbingly familiar. This lingering effect fuels the belief that the spirits, especially the Jinn, do not always stay behind. They attach, observe, test boundaries, ensuring the fear continues beyond the walls. Mackey's music world does not rest. It breathes through the night, carrying whispers, footsteps, and unseen movement from one empty hour to the next. The ghosts repeat their paths. The Jinn stir the air, and the building stands as a living witness to its own history, waiting patiently for the doors to open again, ready to continue a story that never pauses, only waits for the next presence to feel it watching. And now, as the echoes fade and the shadows retreat just enough to let you breathe, remember this: some places don't need belief to exist. They only need attention. Mackey's music world stands as a reminder that history never truly dies. It waits, it watches, and it remembers every soul that listens too closely. If this story stirred something in you, if the suspense followed you even for a moment, don't ignore it. Fear shared is fear understood. If you felt the presence, if the whispers lingered in your mind, share this story with someone who isn't afraid to look into the dark. Subscribe to stay with us, because there are many more places where ghosts walk freely, where Jinn move unseen, and where the past refuses to stay silent. Keep your curiosity sharp, your mind open, and your nights just a little brighter, because the next story is already waiting for you.